kind of have a scientific background, and you said you were involved in the kind of scientific side of beer brewing. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the career trajectory that I've taken is it winds around, and so I always told my students, like, wherever you start, it's not where you're going to finish. So initially, my training was in biology.
Okay.
So in more like cell and microbiology, and then worked in several research labs. And then from there, I found kind of a love for teaching and science education. So teaching undergraduates biology and focusing there. And then during that time, I was always homebrewing. So I was taking what I was learning from there and supplementing into homebrewing. But then after graduate school, then stumbled into the kind of beer industry, or what I would call like the industrial side of science. And worked as the kind of head of quality control and doing the microbiology work.
Oh, wow.
For testing the beer. Basically, my job was making sure the beer tasted good. So
Okay. Well, you kind of have an ideal background for dealing with the koji and the yeast and everything.
Yeah.
So how is that reflected in how you go about your brewing?
or I do have a yeast bank that I have at the other brewery, and so we experimented and isolated different yeast and kind of experimented around with which ones we liked. Because commercially, a lot of U.S. breweries only have access to really two strains, so like number 7 and number 9.
Oh, for sake brewers.
Yeah, for
Okay.
sake brewing.
Uh-huh.
But so in terms of like the science background, yeah. So
So
helping out with yeast health, and then also using that kind of fundamental knowledge of enzyme activity and culturing basically a mold, a fungus, because that's in the labs that I worked in. We used Aspergillus, which is related to
Right,
it's
yeah.
Aspergillus oryzae, not I'm blanking
The other
the
one.
model organism that we used.
Okay.
But anyway, so a lot of those kind of things that you kind of take for granted at the time when you're learning about them, they apply to a wide range of things.
So are you interested in maybe developing native American yeasts for the sake brewing community in North America?
I would like to. I know there's been, and several Japanese breweries have kind of embraced that, using a lot of flower yeast that have isolated from the region. So we do have a sake series, or like a line that we do called Transfiguration, where we use non-traditional brewing yeasts, which I think we should be coming out with our second one soon. We did one with kind of a like a Belgian yeast that came out very, very interesting. It's probably the driest sake that we've ever put out, but we have yeast kind of in the line for like a wild native yeast isolated from kind of Tennessee, Kentucky area that we're going to brew with.
Oh, cool. I'd like to try that.
Yeah, hibiscus flower yeast from Okinawa, and so we have kind of a back catalog of yeast that we'll try out, and that kind of goes along with our kind of philosophy of just experimentation. So now we're getting into the flavor infused sakes. So this one is the shining one. This one is our tangerine creamsicle nigori. So the base is I'll get a stopper real quick. The base is opalescent that we just had, but we infuse it with tangerine juice, and then after we press it, we age it on vanilla bean. So.
Whoa!
Mm-hmm.
Wow!
Everybody
wow,
always.
the color of that.
This one is a popular one in the summertime.
It really does smell like a dreamsicle.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That's what we were going with. So like we kind of mentioned before about the nigoris, there's a lot of things.
And a donut.
Yeah.
It smells like donuts.
Has that
frosting.
That confectionery kind of sugar. This is probably the sweetest one that we do, just because of instead of cutting it with water, we're cutting it with tangerine juice.
But it's not it's not sickly sweet or anything like that.
Yeah,
It's still
so-
got that dryness, and also the acidity of the tangerine is really
Mm-hmm.
nice in there.
Yeah. So this one is one of our more popular ones in the summer. Actually, all year people love this one. So this is kind of our craft beer kind of sake that
I think,
drives a lot of those consumers in here, and then they try our more traditional ones as well.
yeah, I think a lot of people would not identify that as a sake. They'd
It doesn't
kind of be
taste like
"What is
alcohol
that?"
at all.
Yeah, yeah.
I think what's different about sake here is kind of the willingness to kind of innovate and do different things.
Well, actually, I had like when I first heard about particularly American sake brewers experimenting with infusions, my initial reaction, honestly, was like, why? Because
Yeah. a lot of sake people are like, why would you do that?
yeah,
But-
because I feel like a lot of that in Japan, they're trying to get through like the yeasts and things like that. But actually, infused sake is something that is traditional. So they infused herbs and things like that to use as medicine. And there's a really interesting sake that I had from Shiga that uses mulberry leaves that are infused
Yeah.
in it. It's very interesting. So
I love herbal kind of like tea's my big thing. So like we have one of my favorites. It's a springtime sake, but we do sake infused with matcha
Okay.
tea and honey,
Yeah.
which is really good. You could joke and say it's a very American thing to just throw stuff at like another beverage and make it, but I mean we got the idea from Japan.
Okay.
So they, like you said, they've been doing it.
okay, so how about you show us some other things that you're experimenting with?
Yeah, so we had just so when we initially opened our tap room, our initial concept was to do a ramen kind of bar and like a brew pub kind of concept. But then when the shutdown happened, we had to kind of pivot, and we just focused on distribution. So and then we opened our tasting room. Sake being higher alcohol, a lot of people are thrown off by 15%, 13%, and we wanted to offer like a low alcohol option for patrons as well. So we kind of came up with we call them sake seltzers, but it is a sake base that we cut to 5% carbonated and then play around with some of the flavor infusions.
Okay.
So the first one is a plum ginger infused sparkling sake. Oop, sorry about that.
That's okay.
But yeah, so this one, like I said, is our
Oh.
low alcohol option, and we just kind of started as an experiment, and it took off in popularity.
Oh, really? Oh, wow, that's really nice. It's
Yeah.
really refreshing.
Yeah, so we kind of went with the dry crispness of.
So there's no
of it.
added sugar in this
Nope.
at all. Okay.
Yeah, so there's no added sugar. We do age the sake a little bit longer just to kind of drive in some of those more like amino-y kind of umami flavors. But it's our base sake.
So how many different flavors do you have of this?
Right now we do 4 on tap, but we just started canning these this year. So and that's one of our kind of things is this year pushing this out to distribution. But right now we just have the plum ginger, coconut macaroon is a fun one. We've done strawberry kiwi, a lot of those fun kind of seltzery flavors. These get people excited about, bringing people in, trying sake, but we do a lot of more traditional techniques. So another sake that I'm really pleased with this year is our, I call it our sparkling tokubetsu. So it is a sake that we use brew with almachi rice. And then we do, instead of forced carbonate in it, like with the seltzers, we do a very traditional method de chambois, method de champagne.
Oh, so bottle
Yeah,
condition.
bottle
Okay.
conditioned sake. Very similar to, in Japan, the awasake. But we're not adding kind of fermenting mash to it, but more of like a traditional winemaking when you have like a bottling yeast, and then we riddle it on the wooden A-frame racks and then do a traditional
So
disgorgement.
do you add more sugar to it, or do you? Oh, so you add the sugar to it.
Yeah, so that's in Japan they can't do the added sugar and still call it Nihonshu
Right.
sake. So
So usually it's like
yeah,
whatever's left, whatever's still alive when they press it.
yeah. Generally they'll either top crop or just take off some of the top of the moromi or the starter and add that to it, and then the sugars and the yeast in that will reactivate it. But
But this is actually a champagne style
yeah,
that you're doing.
yeah.
Okay, all right, let's try it.
All right.
It's almost like a cider, like the aroma that I'm getting from it.
Yeah. We do another omachi kind of ginjo grade sake, but with omachi, we call it our tokubetsu, just because it doesn't have that ginshu flavor and aroma that a lot of people expect, but it's more rice forward. But the bubbles bring out the kind of apple pear.
Yeah, very fine carbonation in that.
Yeah, and that's one of the things with natural carbonation. You get those smaller bubbles. Since the sake itself doesn't have a lot of acidity, it comes off very sweet, moussey, and then it just dry. It comes very dry. So
Yeah.
this is like a dry champagne, but so there's a research vineyard and winery here in Lexington as well, and so they helped with kind of perfecting the more traditional champagne making methods, and he had it, and he was like, this is very weird because it's sweet yet dry.
Yeah,
and
did he?
but he loved it.
I have a feeling that if you gave this to somebody who didn't know it was Nihonshu based, they would have a hard time, like, saying what it was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Maybe like top sommeliers or something would be able to, but if you gave this to somebody who just had a general knowledge about wine, they may think this is like kind of a natural wine or something like that. That's what it comes off as to me.
Yeah, and like one of the things I love about omachi rice is the kind of floral herbal kind of notes to it, and also maybe
But it
some
has
like
that
rye.
omachi. But it has that omachi umami like in that as well. So I really like that. So what are some things besides these new products that you're developing? What are some things that you're looking forward to experimenting with, or learning, or trying in the coming year or years?
Yeah. So with omachi being one of my favorite rices to brew with, that's one brand that we're gonna kind of explore a little bit more. We've done it a few times, but have it more like in our regular rotation, kind of. And then we are we are experimenting with doing more of a traditional like ginjo or daiginjo type sake. And then all our stuff, we've talked about trying to do some charcoal filtering, but I think keeping it Moroccan is kind of just our thing. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and also I think for an American palate and things that people might be, I mean, eventually it would be great to have people drinking these at home with things that they eat every day, and probably those lighter things are not really going to cut it with a lot of American food. I think.
Yeah,
with a barbecue, for
yeah,
example.
and that's what we tell people all the time. So a common question is like, oh, what do I pair this with? Whatever you want.
Yeah.
Like sake.
Experiment with the pairing. That's the way you're going to find what you like.
Yeah, like I tell people all the time, like, you like pizza? The Messenger and pizza is very good. Barbecue, opalescent, and barbecue is amazing. We've done kind of food pairings with a restaurant. We did like an orange kind of salad, like a fruit salad, like a Caesar salad with like fruit in it. And they paired shining one with it.
Yeah.
Or lighter dishes like fish can also work, but with sake being higher in that kind of umami and lower in acidity, it can pair with anything.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you, Justin, for having me here today and letting me taste all the variety of sake that you're making. And for anybody watching this, sake brewing outside of Japan is really becoming a really important trend, and if you have a sake brewer who's starting out in your neighborhood in the United States or elsewhere, I hope maybe you'll give them a try and not discount them just because it doesn't come from Japan. So until my next video, keep exploring sake.